Anniversaries meant something to me. Not the flashy kind with balloons and social media posts, but the quiet ones where two people remember the version of themselves they were when they first said yes. 3 years ago, Amber and I had gone to this little sushi place on our first real date. She had worn a blue scarf that she fiddled with all night, and I remember thinking she looked like the kind of person who could make silence feel safe. So I wanted to mark the date even if she hadn't mentioned it this year. She'd been talking for weeks about a private event her company was throwing. Some kind of closed-door networking mixer for top-tier staff and VIP clients. She called it a career opportunity, and I remember thinking, good. She deserved to be seen. She'd worked hard, late nights, endless phone calls, poring over presentation decks until her eyes looked exhausted even when she smiled. Still, when I asked if I could come, just to support her for a bit, just to be in her world for a while, she'd brushed me off. It's just internal, she said. Very corporate. You'd be bored out of your mind. Maybe I should have let it go. Maybe I should have stayed home with the takeout and Netflix and pretended not to feel the distance growing between us. But something about the way she said it so quickly, almost rehearsed, felt off. That morning, I stopped by the florist. They knew me by name. Every now and then I'd bring amber flowers, usually white orchids, her favorite. She told me once that they made her feel calm. Like breathing through glass. Fragile things, but elegant. Like her, in a way. I drove to the lounge after work. It was one of those velvet rope places with gold trim and dim lighting designed to make you feel like the world outside didn't exist. I wasn't on the list, but the girl at the front desk gave me a look that said she recognized the gesture, the man with the flowers, trying to do something meaningful. She tapped a few buttons on her tablet and said, "Go ahead. They're in the back." That's when I saw them. There was this frosted glass wall separating the main room from the more private area. You couldn't see faces clearly, but you could make out movements, shapes, posture. Amber was inside wearing that slate gray dress I always told her she looked incredible in. But I wasn't the one she was smiling at. She was standing way too close to a man in a tailored suit. I recognized him. Jair Madsen. Her boss. The same guy she used to complain about during our late-night kitchen talks. He's a control freak, she'd said once. Thinks he knows everything. Funny, he didn't look controlling now. He looked comfortable. Like he belonged in her space. And she let him. I stood still behind the glass, watching. Amber's hand came up to straighten his tie. Her fingers lingered longer than they should have. Then she leaned in, whispering something into his ear, and he laughed. Not politely. Deeply. The kind of laugh that says, "I know you in ways others don't." I couldn't hear what she said, but I didn't need to. Her body said everything. The way she tilted her head toward him, the small smile tugging at her lips, the way she touched his lapel like it was natural. And that's when it hit me, I didn't recognize her. Not the woman in that room. She wasn't tense. She wasn't rehearsed. She looked relaxed, effortless, like someone who had let the guard down I had been staring at for months. The same woman who'd been coming home late, sleeping at her apartment more often than mine, saying she was too tired for anything. And here she was, glowing under the soft light of a work event, hand on another man's chest. I stepped back. The orchids crinkled in my grip. I didn't storm in. Didn't make a scene. I just waited. Found a quiet corner near the bar and stared at my phone until the event started thinning out. Around 9:30 she texted, "Hey babe, wrapping up soon. You still up?" I replied, "Outside. Got something for you." When she came out and saw me, she smiled, surprised. Or maybe caught off guard. "Jason," she said, voice warm, but with that flicker of something behind it. "What are you doing here?" "Wanted to surprise you. Happy anniversary." I handed her the flowers. She held them gently, eyes softening for a second. "Oh my God, you remembered." Of course I remembered. "I thought it was just a boring work night," I said carefully. "Didn't want to interrupt anything?" She laughed light, dismissive. "God, you're such a romantic. This was just networking and champagne. You really didn't miss much." I didn't say anything about what I'd seen. Not then. But on the drive back to her apartment, I couldn't help myself. "Seemed like everyone was pretty friendly in there," I said, trying to keep it casual. She didn't look over. Just kept staring out the window. "Yeah, well, that's the culture. Schmoozing. You know how it is. Even your boss?" She turned to me then. Not angry, just cautious. "What do you mean?" "I saw you with him. From the hallway. Looked like you were close." That's when she went full performance. The soft laughter, the brush of her hand against mine, the practiced tone of disbelief. "Oh my God, Jason. Are you jealous? Seriously?" I was thanking him for the project he gave me. He complimented my pitch. It wasn't a big deal. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But there was a delay in her voice. A pause too long between the words. And the way she emphasized how harmless it was, it felt rehearsed. Like she'd practiced it on the way out. You know I'd tell you if something was wrong, she said. I'm just trying to grow at work. You want that for me, don't you? I nodded. What else could I do? Later, I lay awake in my own bed while she texted from hers, thanks for tonight. You're so thoughtful. I'm lucky. But I didn't feel lucky. I felt like I had just watched something slip through my fingers and I didn't even know what to call it yet. After that night, things didn't exactly explode. There was no fight, no screaming match. Just a slow unraveling, the kind that only people who've been together long enough will recognize. You start to notice patterns, small things that, alone, mean nothing. But once the suspicion is there, every detail becomes a breadcrumb. The first thing I couldn't unsee was how quickly she dismissed what I'd witnessed at the event. She didn't get defensive, not really. She got polished. Her voice softened. Her logic was flawless, too flawless. She deflected with phrases like, "You're overthinking," or "You know how networking works," and always, "I'd never do that to you, Jason." But when someone says they'd never do something and you can't figure out why they felt the need to say it in the first place, that's when your stomach starts to drop. It didn't happen all at once. I didn't start tailing her or reading through her messages. That came later. What came first was memory. Rewinding the signs, even if I didn't know I was doing it. She used to stay over at my place 4 or 5 nights a week, back when things were solid, when we'd binge bad reality TV and make late-night pasta just because we could. Lately, though, she started going home after dinner. At first it was work stuff. "I left my laptop there, babe, I just need to prep for tomorrow." Then it was, "I sleep better at my place, you know how noisy your street is." I'd hear it, nod, and let it go. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Still sent the occasional meme during the day. But something in those gestures started to feel procedural. Like she was checking a box. Then came the phone. Amber wasn't obsessed with her phone before. She'd forget it in the other room, lose it under the couch. That was her vibe. But lately, it never left her side. It was always face down. And when it buzzed, she'd flip it over in one motion and casually place it in her lap, smiling like nothing had happened. One night, this sticks with me, she laughed at a message while we were brushing our teeth. Just this quick chuckle and a smile. I asked, "Who's that?" She said, "Rachel." Her friend. And maybe it was. But when I said, "Tell her I said hey," she froze for half a second before replying, "She's just being dumb." Inside joke. She turned away from the mirror and changed the subject. I let her. And the thing is, I wasn't looking for reasons to doubt her. I was looking for reasons not to. Still, it added up. Like how her girls' nights started happening almost every week now. She'd get dressed up more than usual. Hair curled, lipstick bold. I remember thinking she looked incredible and I told her so. But she barely reacted. Just smiled and said, "Gotta look cute for the squad." But she never invited me to say hi to them anymore. She used to hand me the phone while FaceTiming or at least mention their names. Now it was just the girls, this vague unit I never saw. And she always came home late. Too late. Once close to 2 a.m. smelling faintly like cologne I didn't recognize. Not my scent. Not something she wore. Something male. She said they ended up at a club and someone must have bumped into her. I didn't even respond. I just said goodnight and turned over. There was also the mug. God, that damn mug. I was cleaning up one morning while she was in the shower. It was a simple ceramic one, left on the counter with half-drunk coffee inside. But the lettering on it caught my eye, "Power by Coffee from JR." Those were the exact words. The initials made my skin crawl. Where'd this come from? I asked when she walked back in. She didn't even blink. "Oh, that? The team got a bunch of those. Group gift from the office." I forgot I brought it over. But that wasn't just any mug. That was his mug. I'd seen a photo of Jair holding one just like it in one of those team-building posts she once showed me on LinkedIn. He'd been wearing a smug grin and an expensive watch, arms slung around Amber's shoulders like they were co-chairs of some internal empire. So either the whole office had mugs stamped with his initials or she had his. I never saw it at our place again after that day. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was building a house out of pebbles. But then one night I saw her smiling at her phone, and when she caught me watching, the smile vanished so fast it felt like I'd imagined it. That's when I knew I hadn't. Things began to shift in my own behavior. I became quieter, not cold, but distant. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I was exhausted from playing dumb. There's a weird kind of loneliness in pretending everything is okay when it isn't. You start to feel like a ghost inside your own relationship. I tried to bring it up once, gently. I said something like, "I miss us. It feels like you're somewhere else lately." She didn't deny it. She just hugged me from behind while I stood at the sink and said, "I've just been tired, babe. Everything's moving so fast." Her voice was soft, her arms tight. It almost worked. I almost let myself believe it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized she wasn't tired. She was energized. She lit up when her phone buzzed. She seemed distracted in the best way, like someone who had a secret worth keeping. And me? I was starting to fade from her routines. She stopped leaving clothes at my place. Her toothbrush disappeared. The leftovers I used to pack her for lunch started coming back untouched. And one night, while folding laundry, I found a pair of earrings that weren't hers. Or maybe they were. I couldn't tell anymore. That was the problem. I didn't even know what belonged to her and what didn't. I didn't confront her. I didn't snoop through her messages. But I started watching closely. I noticed how she never used "we" anymore. How future plans, vacations, new furniture, even small things like weekend markets, quietly vanished from our conversations. We used to be planning to move in together by spring. She stopped bringing it up. When I mentioned looking at listings again, she said, "Let's slow down a little. Work is insane right now." Insane, right? The hardest part of this phase wasn't the lies. It was the ambiguity. Nothing she did could be proven as betrayal. But all of it, combined, felt like a slow goodbye. Not loud, not explosive. Just a door creaking closed behind me while I stood on the other side, still waiting for her to come back. I didn't know then that I was just a placeholder, that what we were had already been archived, and I just hadn't received the memo. But I felt it. Every night she didn't call. Every text that read like a form letter. Every plan postponed. Every look that didn't linger. It was all there. I just didn't want to admit it yet. That I don't think I ever expected to catch her. Not really. I thought this would be one of those slow deaths. No explosions, no screaming. Just two people drifting so far apart that one day we'd look around and realize we'd become strangers. But then came that night. It was a Wednesday. I remember that clearly because I had an early meeting Thursday morning, one of those all-hands Zoom calls where everyone pretends to care. My plan was simple: work, dinner, maybe a few emails, bed by 10. Amber had told me she was having dinner with Rachel and some of the other girls, and I hadn't questioned it. Not out loud, anyway. She left around 6, wearing a fitted Berg *NDY coat I hadn't seen in a while. Her hair was curled, her perfume, stronger than usual, lingered in the hallway even after she was gone. "Don't wait up," she said, giving me a quick kiss that barely touched my lips. "We might grab drinks after." I nodded and watched the door close behind her. I hadn't planned to come home early. My boss canceled our evening call and suddenly I had time. Time and curiosity. Or maybe just something deeper than curiosity. Something hollow and tired and desperate for clarity. So I drove back to the apartment. It was around 8:15 when I got there. I remember because I thought about grabbing takeout on the way in, but something told me to just go straight home. The building was quiet. The kind of quiet you only notice when something inside you is bracing for noise. I unlocked the door and stepped in, immediately greeted by darkness and stillness. Everything looked normal, too normal. But something was off, even if I couldn't name it right away. Then I noticed the shoes. By the door, next to Amber's boots, sat a pair of polished black loafers. Not mine. Too new, too sharp. The kind you wear with a tailored suit and a certain kind of confidence. I froze. Part of me wanted to walk right back out, pretend I hadn't seen anything, lie to myself one more time. But another part, that quiet, exhausted part, wanted to know, needed to know. I walked toward the bathroom first. That's when I saw it, a second toothbrush, still wet from use, sitting in the cup beside mine. Blue handle. Not hers. Not mine. I opened the medicine cabinet. A stick of deodorant I didn't recognize. Cologne. Something woodsy and expensive. I picked it up, sniffed it, and my chest tightened. It was the same scent I'd noticed faintly on her jacket last week, the one she said came from a crowded Uber. I moved slowly, like I was walking through a museum exhibit of someone else's life. Our bed was made, but too perfectly. The pillows had been fluffed, the comforter tucked. Amber didn't do that. I did. She always left it rumpled. And then, through the thin walls of our apartment, I heard laughter. Two voices outside the door, hers and a man's. Muffled, casual, familiar. I didn't move. Keys jangled. The knob turned. The door opened and in walked Amber, smiling, mid-sentence followed by JR. He stopped when he saw me. She did too. Her entire body stiffened like she'd just walked into a trap. Which, to be fair, she had. Oh, she said. Just that one syllable. Nothing else. JR's face shifted from surprise to something else, cool calculation. He stepped back a little as if distance could undo what was happening. I looked at her. Not him. Only her. Home early, I said quietly. She swallowed. I thought you had your meeting. I thought you were with Rachel. Silence. She looked down at the orchids I'd bought her a week earlier, now wilting in the vase by the kitchen sink. Funny how something once beautiful could rot so quietly. JR cleared his throat. Maybe I should stay, I said, voice sharper than I intended. Might as well all be here for the truth. Amber's eyes darted between us. She was wearing heels. Lip gloss. A necklace I'd never seen before. Her hair was still curled. She looked polished. Not like someone out with girlfriends. Like someone on a date. I can explain, she said, and those words made something inside me finally snap, not loud, not dramatic, just a clean internal break. No, I said. Don't. Because she wasn't going to explain. Not really. She was going to rewrite the narrative, dress it in corporate vocabulary, miscommunication, professional closeness. It didn't mean anything. I knew how that story went. I'd been listening to the rehearsal for weeks. Jason, she tried again, but I raised a hand. You don't have to lie to me anymore. That's when JR spoke up, voice calm, confident. Look, man, I think it's best if we talk later. This seems like a private moment. I laughed just once. You think anything's private now? He shifted, uncomfortable. Amber looked at me like she was hoping I'd yell or cry or demand answers. But I didn't give her that. I just stood there, surrounded by her silence, her choices, the wreckage of what we'd built. She moved toward me. I didn't plan for this to happen now. Of course not. It was complicated, eh? No, I said, shaking my head. It was simple. You made a choice. Her eyes welled up, but I didn't feel moved. Not angry. Not even sad. Just done. She stood frozen in the doorway, one hand still on her purse strap. JR stood behind her, awkwardly silent now, as if he'd realized this wasn't going to be one of those affairs that ended in a clean break and a weekend getaway. I need some time, she whispered. Take all the time you want, I said. You don't live here anymore. That landed like a slap. I walked past them both, grabbed the box I'd already packed, her things, what little she still kept at my place, and set it by the door. Lip balm, extra chargers, a sweater, the mug from JR. No yelling. No begging. Just a quiet declaration that this chapter was over. She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the floor. I stepped back. Watched her pick up the box. Watched JR glance at me, then at her, and for the first time I saw uncertainty on his face. Good. Goodbye, Amber, I said, my voice level. She hesitated. Jason, But I closed the door before she could finish. And in the silence that followed, I stood still for a long time, letting the weight of the moment settle around me. She was gone. The worst part? I didn't even feel heartbreak. I just felt free after she left that night, after I closed the door and stood there in the kind of silence that feels like the last scene in a movie. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse onto the floor or punch a wall. I just stood there for a while, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the soft creak of the apartment settling around me. Maybe it should have hurt more. Maybe that said something about me or about the relationship we'd built. But the truth was, I think I had already grieved it. Not in one night, but slowly, over months. Every time she didn't text back, every time her eyes looked past me instead of at me, every time I said, I love you, and heard a delay on the other end, I chipped away at the connection in my own heart. By the time I watched her walk out the door with her secrets boxed up under one arm, there wasn't much left to mourn. I didn't call anyone. Didn't vent to a friend or ask for advice. I didn't need comfort. What I needed was distance. Stillness. Space to move without the static of what she might say, or what JR might think, or what the world would expect me to feel. So I did the only thing that made sense. I got to work. I started with the apartment. We were supposed to move in together next month, new place, better view, closer to her office. We had already signed paperwork, paid the deposit. But I canceled it that morning. Called the leasing office, told them something came up, thanked them for their time. I didn't owe them an explanation. I wasn't interested in salvaging anything that had her fingerprints on it. Then I went through the digital cleanup. I deactivated our shared calendar. Disabled notifications from our date night app, the one we hadn't used in months but that kept sending chirpy reminders about local jazz shows and open mics. I removed her fingerprint from the apartment lock, blocked her from the Wi-Fi. Not out of pettiness, just logistics. Just steps. Quiet ones. She texted the next afternoon. Just a simple, "Can we talk? Please?" I stared at it for a long time. I didn't open it. I didn't respond. Later, a call. Then another. Then silence. The next time she tried, it was longer. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But what happened, it wasn't meant to be like that. I didn't plan it. Can we just sit down and talk? I want to explain everything." But I already knew how that conversation would go. I'd seen enough of it at the party, through the glass wall, in the way she'd whispered and smiled and leaned into someone else like I was no longer in the room. I didn't need to hear about how she was confused or how work got personal or how lines got blurred. That's the kind of language people use when they're trying to sanitize betrayal, make it digestible, professional, gray. I wasn't interested in gray anymore. I was interested in clean lines. So I didn't answer. Instead, I started boxing things up. Not hers, those were already gone, but everything that reminded me of us. Photos, souvenirs from trips, ticket stubs, her scrawled sticky notes that used to make me smile but now just looked like fiction. I put it all into one cardboard box and labeled it nothing. Just left it blank. That felt appropriate. I put the box in the closet. Not because I planned to revisit it, but because throwing it out felt too dramatic. Too reactive. And I didn't want to be dramatic. I wanted to be done. It wasn't numbness. It was intention. People think the opposite of love is hate, but it's not. It's indifference. It's walking past your own history without flinching. I unfollowed her on socials. Not blocked, just gone. I didn't want to watch her rebuild her narrative online. I didn't want to see carefully curated stories about self-growth or see a smiling selfie with a caption like "New Beginnings herb." I didn't want to watch the rebranding of a betrayal. Let her spin it however she wanted. I was no longer in the audience. She called again that weekend. I watched the screen light up with her name, and for a split second I thought about answering. Not to reconnect, but to say the one thing I hadn't yet said out loud. "You broke something in me and I didn't even scream. That's how you know it's over." But I didn't. I let the call ring out. No voicemail. By Sunday, the text stopped. I guess she got the message. Funny how quiet closure can be. That night, I sat on the couch, sipping a beer, watching the city lights blink through the window. The same window she used to lean against, wrapped in my hoodie, talking about where we'd be in 5 years. Marriage, maybe? Kids? A dog? One of those golden mutts she used to say with a stupid happy face. It didn't make me sad. It just made me wonder how many of those words had ever been real and how many were just projections of who she thought she should be. I didn't judge her for the affair, not in the way people expect. People mess up. They do selfish things. They get lost in the reflection of who they are around someone new. I got that. What I couldn't forgive was the lying. The weeks and months of pretending. The way she let me carry the weight of suspicion while smiling in my face. That was the cruelty. Not what she did, but how she let me question myself for feeling like something was wrong. I remembered a night about 2 months earlier when I'd asked her if everything was okay. I'd worded it carefully, didn't want to sound accusatory. Just wanted to connect. And she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I'm just tired. You worry too much." She even laughed afterward. Pulled me close and kissed me like it was all in my head. I thought that was an asterisk Macy. Now I realized it was performance. When Monday rolled around, I returned to my routine. Wake, shower, coffee, inbox. Same playlist, same mug, but everything felt still. And not in a depressing way. Just clean, neutral, like starting over. A friend reached out that week, Ben, from college. We hadn't talked in a while, but he asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I said yes. Not because I wanted to vent. Just because I wanted to remind myself that there was life outside the echo chamber of betrayal. We met at a small bar near downtown. I didn't mention Amber right away. I asked about his new job, his kid, the usual catch-up topics. And eventually, over a second round, he asked, "So, how's everything on your end?" I paused, took a sip. Then I said, "Ended things with Amber." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh. She wasn't who I thought she was," I said. "And maybe I wasn't either." He nodded slowly, like he wasn't sure if I wanted to say more. I didn't. That was enough. I didn't need the pity or the lectures or the better off without her cliches. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just free. And in that freedom, I found something I hadn't had in a long time. Peace. Not the peace you get after a storm, but the kind that comes when you decide not to chase the storm anymore. When you let it pass, let it destroy what it needs to, and then you start sweeping up the debris without needing an audience. That's where I was now. No more explanations. No more what-ifs. Just forward.it was about 10 days after she left before she showed up again. No warning. No text. Just a knock at the door, sharp and confident, like she was still allowed to let herself in. I knew it was her before I even opened it. There's a certain rhythm people knock with when they think they still belong. I didn't move at first. I just stared at the door, hand resting lightly on the back of the couch. The knock came again, this time quicker, less sure. Finally, I opened it. There she was, Amber, her hair pulled back like she was trying to seem composed, dressed down in jeans and a black sweater. No makeup, no jewelry. I recognized that look. It was the one she wore on Sundays when she wanted to have a real conversation. She always dressed softer when she wanted forgiveness. I didn't step aside. "Hey," she said, as if that word held enough weight to erase everything. "Amber." My voice was flat. I didn't say her name as a greeting. I said it the way you acknowledge a loose thread on a shirt. Something to deal with, not cherish. "Can I come in?" "No." She blinked, like she wasn't expecting me to be that direct. I think we should talk." "We talked," I said. "Or at least I did. You made your position clear." Her arms folded across her chest. "Jason, please. I didn't come here to fight." "Good," I said, "because there's nothing left to fight over." That hung in the air like smoke. "I need closure," she said. That word again. Closure. People love using it when they're the ones who left wreckage behind. Like they're owed some final moment of peace from the person they betrayed. But closure, I'd come to learn, isn't a shared door. It's one you shut for yourself. "You had closure the moment you chose him," I said. "You just didn't expect me to accept it." She stepped back like the words had slapped her. "You think I chose him over you?" "I don't think," I replied. "I saw." She rubbed her temples. "Jason, it wasn't what you think it was." "No?" I asked. "You in my apartment with your boss. A toothbrush. Cologne. Your arms around him. What part of that did I misinterpret?" "It's not that simple." "It is," I said. "It always was. You made it complicated." She went quiet for a long moment, chewing on her bottom lip like she always did when she didn't have a comeback. Then she said something that genuinely surprised me. "You didn't even fight for us." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so wildly off base it didn't deserve a serious reaction. "I spent months trying to fight for us," I said. "Trying to understand why you were distant, why you never stayed over anymore, why your phone became a secret, why you flinched when I reached for your hand." She looked down. "I fought, Amber. I just didn't make a scene when I finally accepted that I was the only one still fighting." "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she whispered. "You mean with JR?" She hesitated. "Or do you mean the lies? The manipulation? The gaslighting?" I added, my voice sharper now. "Because honestly, I'm not sure which part you're apologizing for." She shook her head. "I didn't come here for an argument. I need you to understand that I never stopped loving you." My jaw tightened. "That's the problem," I said. "You think love excuses everything. It doesn't. You can love someone and still destroy them." She flinched again, then tried to compose herself. "Do you really feel nothing? After everything?" "I feel peace," I said. "And I'm not giving that up for another round of explanations." Her eyes started to well up. I stood there watching her, feeling absolutely nothing. No guilt, no anger, not even pity. Just a quiet confirmation that this wasn't my burden anymore. "You don't even want to know what happened after?" she asked. "No," I said. "Don't you care if I ended it with him? Did you?" She hesitated. "Yes. The night you found us, I knew it was over. I couldn't go through with it. I told him the next day." I nodded. "Then congratulations. You're only half a cheater." She bit her lip. "You really hate me." I said honestly. Hate requires energy. You don't get to have mine anymore. There was silence again, and this time it stretched on so long I wondered if she'd finally leave. Instead, she said, "So that's it? I'm just a mistake to you now." "No," I said. "You're a lesson." She winced, and for a moment I thought she might cry, but she didn't. She just stood there, eyes wet, shoulders slumped. "I thought maybe if I came back, we could fix it." I nodded. "That's the difference between us. You break something and think showing up is enough. I fix things by knowing when to stop bleeding for them." Amber looked like she wanted to say something else, maybe beg, maybe scream, maybe ask for the version of me that used to write her love letters and make coffee just the way she liked it. But that version wasn't here anymore. She wiped a tear from her cheek. "Okay," she said. "If that's what you need." "It's not what I need," I replied. "It's what I deserve." And with that, I gently closed the door. I didn't watch her walk away. Didn't press my ear to the door to hear if she lingered. I simply turned and sat back on the couch, picked up the book I'd been reading, and resumed.